You know that feeling? You're in the grocery store, you pick up a package, and you just find yourself staring at it thinking, is this clean? It's a question millions of us are asking. So today, we're going to unpack what it really means to believe in the Eat Clean label. Because it's an idea that started out so simple, but has gotten, well, incredibly complicated. All right, let's get into it. I mean, on the surface, it all sounds fantastic, right? Even the official US dietary guidelines are starting to sound like this, telling us all to eat real food. And the appeal is obvious. It promises health, purity, and, a little bit of control over what we put in our bodies, which, in a world this complicated, feels pretty good. And here's the catch. This is where the whole thing starts to get tricky. If you ask 10 different people what clean food means, you're probably going to get 10 different answers. Why? Because in the United States, there is no official, federally regulated definition for the word clean on a food label. None. So what happens when you don't have a clear definition? You get this huge gray area. And into that space rushes everybody else. Marketers, social media influencers, and even our own ideas about what's good for us. They're all trying to define clean for us. It's a powerful promise, but it's a completely unregulated one. Now this slide really gets to the heart of why so many people are skeptical in the first place. The US and Europe just think about food safety in completely different ways. Here, the FDA's approach is basically innocent until proven guilty. An ingredient is considered fine until regulators can prove it's dangerous. But in the EU, it's the total opposite. They use the precautionary principle, meaning companies have to prove an ingredient is safe before it can ever be put in food. And that difference right there, it fuels a huge demand for someone else to tell us what's clean. So you've got this vacuum, right? The government hasn't defined the term, and consumers are feeling pretty uncertain. Well, into that void steps a whole new industry. These are third-party certifiers who've decided to create their own standards. And in doing so, they've basically created a whole new market. One of the biggest players in this space is the Clean Label Project. They're a nonprofit, and they basically said, fine, we'll define clean ourselves. They do their own independent testing for stuff that isn't normally on the nutrition label. We're talking heavy metals like lead and arsenic, pesticides, even plasticizers. Then they compare those products to some of the strictest regulations out there, like California's Prop 65 or EU standards. And this number? Wow. This number tells you exactly why an organization like the Clean Label Project even exists. Just let this sink in for a second. Nearly 99% of the new food chemicals that have been introduced in the US since the year 2000 got the thumbs up from the companies that made them, not from the FDA. A stat like that makes a lot of people feel like they need a watchdog. But here's where the story takes a turn. This pursuit of purity, this desire for clean food, it can have a dark side. What starts out as a really healthy intention can sometimes twist into something harmful, even an obsession. Let's see how that can happen. It's a condition called orthorexia nervosa. Now, it's not an official diagnosis just yet, but clinicians are seeing it more and more. It's when the goal of eating healthy becomes so extreme, so all-consuming, that it actually starts to damage your health and mess with your life. See, unlike anorexia, which is often focused on the quantity of food, orthorexia is obsessed with the quality and purity of food. So, how do you know the difference? Well, this chart lays it out really clearly. Healthy eating is flexible. It's just one part of a balanced life. But orthorexia, it's rigid. Your whole identity gets wrapped up in how perfect your diet is. You feel intense anxiety if you have to break your own rules. It's when the food starts controlling you instead of the other way around. And you know where this gets dialed up to 11? Social media. We scroll past all these influencers with their perfectly clean meals, and it just creates this intense pressure to compare ourselves. But as Professor Missimer points out here, nutrition is so deeply personal. What one person needs is totally different from what you need. Trying to copy an influencer's diet can be seriously dangerous, both physically and mentally. Let's use a popular clean diet as an example, paleo. The whole central argument, which they call the discordance hypothesis, sounds really scientific, right? It basically claims that our Stone Age genes just can't handle modern foods that came from farming, like grains and beans. And that's what's making us all sick. Okay, but when you actually put those claims under a microscope, the science tells a different story. Paleo followers warn about these things called anti-nutrients. They'll say lectins in beans cause inflammation, but guess what? Cooking completely destroys them. They worry about phytic acid in grains, but you can neutralize that just by soaking them. And there's often more of it in paleo-friendly nuts anyway. And gluten? Well, it's only a real problem for a very small part of the population. Cutting out entire food groups based on these fears can actually do way more harm than good.
And now, for maybe the biggest twist in this entire story. After all these years of being a kind of counterculture movement, the main ideas behind clean eating are actually becoming official US government policy.
Yep, you heard that right. Under this Make America Healthy Again banner, the new guidelines are a total reset. For the first time ever, the government's focus is shifting away from just counting grams of fat or carbs. Instead, they're targeting ultra-processed foods, or UPFs, things like packaged snacks, sugary drinks, fast food. And they're telling everyone to prioritize real food. It's this wild moment where the anti-establishment idea is actually being adopted by the establishment.
Okay, so let's be fair and look at this from both sides. There's a lot to like here. Eat more fruits and veggies, choose whole grains, cut back on added sugar. That's all solid advice. But experts have raised some pretty serious red flags. They're pointing to factual errors, a lack of consideration for health equity, like totally ignoring widespread lactose intolerance, and promoting the very meat-heavy diet that clashes with a lot of sustainability research.
So, what are we supposed to do? If the clean label is this flawed and complicated, where do we go from here? Well, maybe the answer is to stop focusing on this vague idea of purity and instead focus on a clear set of evidence-based principles. And this is a really great place to start. The World Health Organization's guidelines, they're simple, straightforward, and flexible. They focus on variety, on shifting towards more plants, on limiting the junk, and avoiding diets that are just loaded with ultra-processed foods. It's not about being perfect. It's about the overall pattern. And here's a tool you can use, right now. As you try to navigate all the noise out there, just keep these 5 red flags in your back pocket. If a diet promises a quick fix, if it starts labeling foods as good and bad, or if it tells you to cut out entire food groups, be skeptical. It's probably a fad, not a healthy, sustainable lifestyle. But, we also have to be real about the economics of all this. For a lot of people, eating clean is a privilege. Because of the way government subsidies work in this country, processed foods packed with calories are often way, way cheaper. I mean, just look at this chart. For $1, you can get almost 5 times as many calories from cookies as you can from carrots. That makes choosing whole foods a real challenge for a lot of families. So I want to leave you with this thought. We started this whole thing by asking, is my food clean? But maybe that's just the wrong question. What if instead we started asking, is my diet balanced? Is it accessible for me and my family? And is it joyful? That might just be the healthiest way to think about food after all.